Welcome to Future Us, a roadmap to elder abuse prevention. My name is Bénédicte Schoepflin. I am the Executive Director of the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, and I am joined today by Margaret MacPherson, Research Associate at the Centre for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that I live and work on the unceded and ancestral territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. On March 24, 2022, CNPEA released Future Us, a roadmap to elder abuse prevention. You can access it at futureus.cnpea.ca in French and in English. Today, we kick off our series of 5 modules with an overview of Future Us, where we will walk you through this new engagement strategy. We hope you will join us over the next 3 days for more modules that will explore ideas and priorities for research, practice, policy, and the law to address elder abuse in Canada. Future Us was developed in collaboration with a team of advocates, professionals, and researchers from across Canada. We are grateful to our many supportive partners who participated in this project and contributed to the development of the strategy, starting with the National Initiative for the Care of the Elderly, who is hosting this learning series, Western University, Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, Egal Canada, CanAge, the Canadian Centre for Elder Law, and the International Longevity Centre of Canada. We're also grateful for our funder, the Department of Justice Canada. To inform our work, we held consultations across the country with leaders from provincial and territorial elder abuse prevention networks. They are listed on the screen: the BC Association of Community Response Networks, the Northwest Territories Senior Society, the Alberta Elder Abuse Awareness Council, Prevent Elder Abuse Manitoba, Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, and Seniors NL. We also consulted with senior advocates, professionals, and government staff, particularly in provinces and territories who do not have an elder abuse prevention network. We are very thankful for the dialogues that helped us develop a picture of prevention across the country, what it is now and what it can be. Future Us is a dynamic document. It is not intended to speak for peoples or communities. It is meant to spark and advance a national dialogue on elder abuse in Canada. We hope that this strategy and the conversations it ignites will grow and evolve as communities adopt Future Us and governments recognize the urgent need to align investments and focus on prevention. And now Margaret MacPherson is going to take you through the main components of the roadmap, and we'll talk again at the end of this presentation.
Oh, thank you, Benedict. I wanted to acknowledge that I'm in Middlesex County in Ontario, the traditional territory of the Lenni Lenape, the Attawandaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples. We have 3 First Nations: Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, Oneida, and Munsee, Delaware. So I'm thrilled to be here with you today, and I'm going to take you through the roadmap. So really, what we're talking about is social change as a project that has to include everyone. And we say often everyone has a role to play, which is absolutely true. But to be able to contribute, you have to know what it is that you can do and the different roles that you can play sort of within your sphere of influence. So the roadmap is designed as a pan-Canadian project, so that no matter where you are in the country, you are part of a shared journey to create a safe, supportive, and inclusive society. 3 goals are going to guide us on this journey that we are all working toward in many different ways, as I'm going to outline. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the goals right now. I'll come back to them. I want to say that the 3 goals are all about prevention, creating the infrastructure that allows us to work together across the country, and the importance of teaching everyone how to recognize, respond, and refer when the warning signs of elder abuse first show up. Change is already happening. There are trailblazers and innovators in every community who are committed to social change, and they're already working in ways that are designed to shift our social norms to value older people and the different experiences of aging. Governments at all levels have made different kinds of investments, albeit it's in an uneven way. But nevertheless, we are in motion. So what we want to do is consolidate on and build on what is already working. We have to learn how to pool our actions in order to achieve collective goals. To be successful, we have to work collaboratively, systematically, strategically toward large scale social change and valuing all contributions, building relationships as we go. It really is true that we build the road as we walk it. So this is the outline of the roadmap. It shows you that it's broken into 5 sections. And when you actually have the PDF, you can see that we've inserted tabs along the side of it so that you can shift from one section to another. You can go straight to the place that appeals to you most, or you can just take your time and read through the whole thing. So the first section is all about starting out and what we know about ageism and elder abuse, the definitions that we're using and what the research tells us and where we're starting from. We know that ageism is really a pervasive issue, and there have been surveys done. This is from a Canadian study that was done in 2012, and it's really stunning to see sort of these incredible numbers around believing seniors are less important and more ignored than younger generations. People who say they do feel that they're treated differently because of their age, and age is, of course, one of the first things we notice about people. So it becomes ageism when when your age is used to categorize and divide people in ways that lead to harm, disadvantage, and injustices. It erodes solidarity across generations. Let's look at the prevalence in Canada. In 2015, NICE carried out a study and found that 7.5% of the surveyed population of older adults had experienced abuse in the year previous. That's significant. Risk factors for elder abuse and neglect include depression, the history of abuse as a child, youth, or adult, living with someone who's financially dependent, and being female. In 81% of the reports, it was a spouse, family member, friend, neighbor, or acquaintance causing the harm. Most often it was male family members. So these are significant issues that we need to be dealing with, addressing, understanding that always when you do these kind of studies too, it's a conservative number because a lot of people don't know how to talk about the issue. They don't report it. And of course, it's not just physical violence. I think that's one of the things that we have to help people understand, that abuse takes many forms. So it can be sexual violence, it can be emotional abuse, financial abuse, the violation of a person's rights and freedoms, neglect. And then there's all the systemic and structural violence of ageism that's kind of built into the system. Like if you think about how long does it take a person to cross the road when you get the countdown on the crosswalks, whose age is that determined by? Does it take into account that it takes some people longer than others? So it's things like that that are just kind of in the water system of our society that prove themselves to be ageist in that they disadvantage older people. So how are we going to respond to these situations that we're describing? Right now, our current state is actually quite dire. There are few or no dedicated services to respond to elder abuse. The entire system, I would say, is crisis oriented. That's the most expensive way that we can respond to violence in families. It often gets included under family violence in sort of, pots of money programs. But I would say because of ageism, it can be ignored. People on the ground tell us that most of the funding goes to younger families. There's still little recognition of elder abuse in the community because 91% of older people that they actually live in private dwellings. They're certainly not in long-term care homes. It's one of the myths and stereotypes we need to be addressing. There's also little recognition of the need for specialization, training that professionals need to be able to recognize warning signs when they see them and not write them off to sort of naturally occurring things that go with getting older. And there's little or no risk management going on anywhere in the country. And by risk management, I mean working with the person who's causing the harm to change their behavior, to hold them accountable, and to expect that it will stop. So, what we really need to do is move upstream toward prevention. And it's not a particular issue at a community or a jurisdiction. It's a societal issue. It's a global issue. So we need a collective approach to be able to make social change that addresses ageism, at a system level, at a societal level, and also elder abuse. So the World Health Organization has talked a lot about the importance of taking an ecological approach in addressing the issues. And so this is a picture that shows that elder abuse isn't just an individual issue. You have to take into account the relationships around people, the community in which they live, the society in which they live, because there are policies and programs that, sort of inadvertently, unconsciously, invisibly discriminate against older adults. There are communities, what are the norms in the community, and how do communities respond? Are they even talking about elder abuse? Ageism in organizations that are committed to equity, are they thinking about the ways in which ageism shows up? And at the citizen level, what can we do to support the people around us? If it's spouses, neighbors, friends, family members, co-workers who are most aware that it's happening, then how do we prepare them to respond when they first see things showing up that make them feel uncomfortable? So I'm coming back now to the three goals that are guiding us. And so, we're not fooling around here. This is a serious project to recognize that we need to respond in every single community. It's a pan-Canadian project because we want to address the disparity amongst provinces and territories. If we're going to learn how to work in a collective way, we need to include everyone. So in every community, we want to prioritize prevention of elder abuse in a formal way. So the municipal government, programs that are being funded, are we considering concerned about how older adults are faring in our communities? We want to establish and support elder abuse prevention networks at local, regional, and national levels. This is like, we want to create a circulatory system through which information, ideas, and innovation can travel, up, down, and across the country. And we want to teach everyone to recognize warning signs of abuse and neglect, how to respond safely and effectively, and where to refer in the community to find help. If you look at social change theory, you will see that, when you're doing complex social change projects, if you just have a few sort of items that you're working on that everyone's working toward, you are able to interrupt what's happening and to make change in a significant way. It will work. So I want to talk a little bit about the second goal and this idea about building the infrastructure of networks. The Canadian network, so Bénédicte's organization and all the people that are involved with that already exist. And they're already doing a lot of the work that you see on the right. They have a knowledge hub. They convene and support the provincial territorial networks. They run webinars. They have a learning network, and they participate in research. In a number of provinces and territories, there are already these regional networks who are, working on the issue at that level. And then in some of the provinces and territories, there are local networks. And really, it's a bottom up kind of approach that we're talking about. The real work of elder abuse happens on the ground in the communities. So this is the infrastructure that we're talking about creating, and so that we can really, work up, down, and across the system. But also, it's a sustainable piece in that it can go beyond. It doesn't get caught up in election cycles and changes in political parties and, priorities, those sorts of things. This kind of infrastructure will be sustained, across, for as long as it's supported. We've gone to we've also talked about what would it cost to actually fund this kind of infrastructure. We've estimated costs to what it would take to actually create this infrastructure in Canada based on the existing networks and the work that they do. And so this is a modest request for a very complex social issue. And we are talking about aligned and integrated funding through three levels of government. So it's a cost sharing model, which makes sense, right? Because it's a nonpartisan issue that affects everyone. We're all getting older. It's in all of our interest to figure out how to put things in place that actually allow us to address the issue. And we are already on our way. If you look across the country, what you can see is that 8 provinces and territories already have an elder abuse strategy. Although some of them are a little out of date, they need to be updated or restarted. 6 provinces and territories have an elder abuse network. But again, this is one of the places where we really see disparity in the sense that it's the richer provinces that have been able to make more investments. 4 of these networks have annualized funding, which is absolutely our goal, is sustained funding. We cannot expect volunteers to do this really important work without, infrastructure to support them in their efforts. So there's a place, right, between the infrastructure that's sustained and all the people who want to participate and volunteer their time. So what can elder abuse networks do? Well, they can do all kinds of things. They are already delivering public education that takes us toward that first goal of educating everyone. They can enhance community coordination. If you look at death review research, so especially in domestic homicides, the recommendations out of the death review committees have been you have to have good community coordination. We have to work across sectors. And for that, we need those relationships in order to ensure a coordinated community response. So you have to invest in it. Uh, they participate in knowledge sharing and mobilization. I can't tell you how many good ideas there are sitting in local places that we need to be sharing and scaling up and supporting each other in the work. So, it's an important resource for communities and governments also to have access to this kind of infrastructure. They contribute ideas, their experience, and innovations at all levels. And they can help us figure out how to advance these pan-Canadian goals. They also support collective action on national priorities, because if we can learn to pull together on common goals, we can do anything. So this is the third part of the roadmap. How can I contribute? Where do I start from? And, really it's about starting from wherever you are. But as a citizen, we want everyone to be able to recognize, respond, and refer. And we're pointing to resources as we go through the roadmap as well. So It's Not Right, Neighbors, Friends, and Families for Older Adults is, a program that I am involved with and can speak about. So we're saying, participate in a workshop. You can go to the It's Not Right website, learn about ageism, reflect on your own attitudes about getting older, start a conversation in your community. This is a little nod to the It's Not Right campaign, and I'm pointing to it because it's an investment that's already been given. The federal government has invested close to $1 million since 2009 to develop quite a range of resources that are available. And in provinces and territories where there are funded elder abuse prevention networks, they do this work. They're using these resources so that we're not always duplicating and creating new campaigns. Let's invest and work with what we already have. One of the key messages from It's Not Right is that you are a powerful being in the world. If you think about your every action as having an impact of some kind, then it asks the question of all of us, what kind of an impact do you want to have? What kind of a society do you want to live in? And really, that's the whole reason for being with us in this. Engagement is absolutely the key. So we give concrete suggestions about how you can get involved. Join your local elder abuse network or start one if there isn't one. Meet with your local elected officials to help them understand what the real pressures are. Sometimes politicians and even senior level bureaucrats, they get too far away from what's actually going on in communities. They need you to be helping them understand where the pressures are and what people's lives are like. Organizations can participate too. Remember, we're working through this ecological model so that we're working at different levels. So leaders in any sector can commit to educating their staff to recognize, respond, and refer. They can learn about and address ageism within their own organization, but also in the way that they work with clients and the public. So again, we point to actions that organizations can take on their own initiative, doing professional development on being able to recognize elder abuse. It's really important that we identify the specialization that's needed when any professional is working with older people. Do they have what they need to be able to recognize the warning signs? And do they know what to do with the information when they see it? We're also pointing to the work that's been done out of the Public Health Agency of Canada to become trauma and violence informed as organizations to recognize and take steps that mitigate the harm of ageism. So I, highly recommend that you go to the Public Health Agency of Canada website, Google trauma and violence informed, and you'll learn lots of good information about how to move on your journey to becoming a more equitable organization through a trauma and violence informed approach. Here's where that first goal really lives is at the community level. We want all communities to recognize elder abuse as a priority issue. How can you work with the people in your community to make this so? I'll talk at the end a little bit about how, tips and tools that we have about that. But here's an idea. There's so many communities in Canada that have joined the age-friendly movement. Do they include elder abuse prevention in that vision of becoming age friendly? How can they not? This is a good place to be engaging people to talk about, you know, how to use existing programs to further this agenda. And then again, there's ideas about educating and engaging government staff, supporting training, convening and hosting community dialogues, to engage everybody in this, not trying to create one table that represents all sort of people, but rather convening dialogues where people can convene themselves, participate in a community-wide conversation. We're really strongly suggesting that as an approach. At a societal level, we need to connect the dots between the fact that when people are having to struggle to survive, violence rates are going to go up. And so we can't talk about elder abuse without also acknowledging that people need a living income, affordable housing, secure food, and equity in healthcare, safety and support, their human rights observed and protected. These things are all connected. They are not separate issues that have to compete against each other. It's in all of our interest to think about the well-being of people of all ages. So there's also information for researchers, ideas about how to work in the ways in which we're describing principles and pathways for elder abuse research in Canada that recognizes different kinds of expertise, different kinds of knowledge, not just academic, and then encourages them to work in this, work with communities, build capacity to think critically about our experiences, to understand systemic and structural issues and violence, and to appreciate the differences between communities and groups. What we want from government is to endorse Future Us and the need for strategic investments in prevention. So we have ideas about how they can do that, and they're suggested in the roadmap because we want to engage government as community partners with a role to play. So goes back to where we were talking about the infrastructure and this big idea of aligned and integrated investments so that we get a better social return on the investments that lasts over time, over election cycles. So this is the last section where we align with the global initiatives. We want to also see ourselves as being part of a global movement. So these are just some of the initiatives that are already underway, happening through the World Health Organization, the United Nations, the older people's rights towards a UN convention, the UN Decade of Healthy Aging. These are important initiatives that when global initiatives go out there into the world, the whole idea is to make them your own. So you see communities working on the Sustainable Development Goals, the age-friendly work. We have to make it our own in order to make it meaningful, in order to make the kind of changes that we want. And of course, there are Canadian initiatives that we want to align with as well. The dementia strategy's already been released. The long-term care strategy, I understand, is coming. This is really where we started from as a group, talking about how to grow a pan-Canadian elder abuse engagement strategy. And so the first step you see on the bottom left there is about developing this strategy. So CMPEA and partners have worked together to develop this. And now we're talking about how to organize. So CMPEA and a community of practice that I convene with the It's Not Right provincial territorial groups have been, talking about how do we mobilize the networks that all these relationships that we have. We need everyone so that we can kind of mobilize people on these common goals, working for the same, from very different places toward common goals, so that we can push this, message. We need to push ourselves, push our governments toward an understanding that if we don't start investing in prevention, if we don't support the people on the ground doing the local work, it is never going to get better. It is only going to get worse because we are an aging population. Things are really going to change. So the time is now for us to be making these investments and to be figuring out how to work together as well as we can. So this comes back to the picture of the ecological model that the World Health Organization puts out, and just a picture for you around, what the roadmap means for citizens, for organizations and leaders, for communities, and for government. You have to ask yourself, what quality of life do you envision for yourself as you get older? And then what do you hope for your children and grandchildren? We have a shared responsibility to figure this out. And so we're asking you to join us because I know, we know you have a lot to contribute and we really do need you. So we've taken some steps to put things in place that can support you in your way. Really, that's what we're here for. Bénédicte and I, we want to support you in your actions too. And so, along with the partners, we've created a toolkit. Um, it's designed for the local groups, local networks to take action in particular ways that sort of is part of this mobilization piece. So you can go to the Future Us website and under the toolkit tab, you'll find templates and tips and tools and, things that help you just spark that idea. We will have a map on the website that you can go and tell us if your community has already done this. If you're one of the pioneers who are out there who've already included elder abuse, tick that box on the first goal. There'll be a place for you to do that on a map. And then we want you to just, there's little things you can do that add up, like just share Future Us with your contact list. Talk about it in your communities. Share it on social media. Tell us about what you're doing. We really want to hear about your stories. So you'll be able to do that through the website. And then we promise that we're going to monitor the progress over time and keep you posted about how we're doing. Because it really is true. The work is just starting and we're really well underway in a lot of ways. But what you do makes the difference. So I'm going to hand it back to Bénédicte now, who's going to wrap up for us.
Thank you, Margaret. Well, we both hope that this presentation has inspired you to take action and to support this strategy in any way you can. As Margaret said, we do want to hear from you, so do stay in touch with us. You can see on our screen right now our contact information for Margaret and for myself. You will, of course, find everything about the roadmap on futureus.cnpa.ca. You can also sign up for CNPA's newsletter by following the link on your screen. This will allow you to get some regular updates from CNPA about our work in general, or find us on social media at CNPA on Facebook and Twitter. We hope you will join us over the next 3 days for more modules that will explore ideas and priorities for research, practice, policy, and the law to address elder abuse in Canada. Each of these modules will be presented by one of our key partners, and we really look forward to seeing you at those next sessions. Thank you.